Hello the internet, my name is Dean and welcome back to another Ruby on Rails tutorial. This is week 17 of the 20 and 20 challenge. And today we're going to be continuing on with what we've been covering in the last couple episodes. We're going to be using the same Vue to-do list, but this time we're going to be launching it to production on a DigitalOcean droplet. This is going to be a little bit different than week 16. In week 16 we used the DigitalOcean apps. Today we're going to be using just a generic droplet that's configured or pre-configured with some Rails stuff. And then we're going to clone our repository in and we're going to set it up for production and we're going to serve the Vue app on the production server. So as opposed to last time where you had a local Vue app that just made some API requests, today you're going to use the Vue app sort of as your landing page for your website. And then the API also sits on that server. This also means we'll have the database on the same server, which means you won't have that persistence issue we had last time. So when you push up changes, you need to update the code. Here you won't be wiping out your database. Your database will persist. It'll just live on the same server. This is frequently what people do with like WordPress sites, for example. So we're going to be taking a look at that as an alternative to the, the more expensive apps solution, at least initially. Because I think apps initially are $5 for the app and then $7 for the database, so $12 total, while a regular generic droplet that's perfectly capable of running both is $5 for just the server, where you can also install the database on. So you can sort of see how you're saving some money initially doing it this way. Whether that's better or worse in the long run, I'm not entirely sure. But that's going to do it for me. Let's go ahead and let's jump into some code. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is once again point out that there is a DigitalOcean affiliate code in the video description. So if you would like basically 2 free months of hosting, this code gives you a $100 credit over 60 days. So over the course of 60 days, you have $100 to spend. And then after the 60 days, if you spend $25, they also credit me $25. That's at no cost to you. It helps me out, and hopefully it helps you out by giving you 2 free months of hosting. But now that we have that out of the way, let's go ahead and let's take a look at what we're working on today. So just like last time, we have this to-do list application here. So this is a Vue 3 application that is communicating with a Rails 6 API. And they both live on the same IP address here. So essentially, I sort of have this backwards, but when you were to visit the website, you would go to this location, you'd have your to-do list, and you as the user would never be aware that this other part of the application exists, or this entire other application exists, that functions as the API that handles all those requests that the front end does. But we can still, make to-do items, we can delete them, we can mark them as completed, and if we refresh, they're still here. And if we refresh this one, you can see them being added to the API. So let's go ahead and let's get started by doing this. I have my terminal open over here. We'll be doing most of our work through an SSH session. But the first thing we need to do is actually create a droplet. So I'll go over here, click create cloud server, and I'm going to full screen this. There is a marketplace section, and we're going to head over there. And in here, we should be able to search for Rails, and we'll see a Ruby on Rails framework here that we can use. And if we come down here, we can move to $5 a month because we are on a budget. It should ask us to add an SSH key. I've added mine. I'm going to make sure I don't hover over anything. And then if we come down here, only one droplet, we can give it a name. So for this, I'll call this the to-do list video, and you can give it tags and all that other stuff. I'm not going to bother with that. And then we can go ahead and click create droplet, I believe, because I think at this point we are done. So let's scroll down here, click create. Okay, and now that that's done, let's go ahead and let's open up this droplet. So open it up and we'll get an IP address over here, this IPv4. We'll copy this, and because I added a SSH key, I should now be able to simply SSH into this. So I'll say SSH Rails at, and then the IP address, and then I'll say yes. And this server creates a Rails user for us. So there's a whole bunch of stuff it does for us, but the basic idea is it creates a Rails user that we can use for the database. It sets up Nginx. It sets up the Rails server to run as a service, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But if we go ahead and we cd into home, Rails, and then we should have an example app. And if we copy this IP and we come over here, we'll open up a new tab and we'll paste it in. And this is going to be the IP that we're working on today. So you can see here, we're writing Ruby on Rails. Just like that, you have a server that is up in the production cloud thing. So now what I have to do is I have to remember all of the setup that I did to get this functioning on the other application. I actually cloned the wrong one here. So I'm going to go ahead and just retroactively edit this. And leave some of it in so I make a fool of myself. We want to come over to the Deanin Todo API repository. I'll have a link to this in the video description. I was going to use the 20 and 21, but I think that one's just too big. And then if you come over here, you can click on code, HTTPS, click clone, and then make sure you're at the same level as the example application. And then we'll just do a git clone and we'll paste in that URL and that should clone it perfectly fine. So now we have two projects here. Now let's go into our Todo API and then cd Todo. We need to do this Ruby install. So for this, we'll just say rvm install Ruby 2.7.1. And at this point, you're probably going to want to go get a coffee because this will take a minute for it to update. If you are on the same version for both, then never mind. I'm just talking for no reason, and I will see you on the other side of this edit. Okay, and now we can cd into our Todo API. Oh, we're already in here, actually. So the next thing we want to do is let's open up our gem file, and let's make sure this is up to date. We do have our rack cores, but one thing I do want to add here is the Postgres gem, because this is set up to run with Postgres. So we'll add that, and then we'll do a Rails env equals production, and then we'll just run our bundle install command. Install. So that should install the PostgreSQL gem along with the other dependencies here. And this is another one of those commands that will take a minute, especially when you get to the no-code set. So I'll see you on the other side of this command. Okay, and the next thing we're going to do is come back to our example app. We'll say cd example, and then we'll need to edit our, I think it's config/database.yaml. So this has something that's a little bit different than what ours looks like. So we do need to grab some of this information just to make sure that it's the same for both. So for this, I'm going to delete some of these comments, and I'm doing this with Control K. Which is a nano command. So if you're using Vim, I don't think it's Control K. I don't remember off the top of my head. I usually don't remember what the commands are unless I'm actively using the editor. But we can just go ahead and copy this, hit Control X to exit, and then N to leave. And we'll cd /todo, and then we'll do a, I guess we'll just do a Vim for the sake of entertainment, and we'll Vim the config/database.yaml. And this one right here, it looks like has a whole bunch of stuff we also probably don't need. So, okay, and then we'll just go ahead and we'll just delete all of this stuff actually. So we'll delete this. We don't need any of this, and let's also get rid of this. Probably could have just restarted the whole file. And then if I paste, so this is what our file should look like when we're done. We have our default adapter, we have our development, test, and production, and the production's the one we want to focus on here. Instead of calling this example production, we will call this, let's just call it Todo API, and our username is Rails, and we're still using the example environment password. So we can hit escape and then WQ to exit out of this. And then what we need to do now is I think it's Rails env equals production. Rails db : create. And actually, I'm going to see if I can do this. I don't remember exactly how to do this. Is it? Oops, I think it's Rails. Let's just do it like this. Rails db create. We'll run this command. This will actually create our Postgres database. And then we will need to run a second command, assuming I do things correctly. Missing key secret base. So we're missing the secret key. Okay, so it looks like what we have to do is we have to run a editor equals nano Rails credentials edit command, which will generate a new master key. So this is my master key. Make sure you don't save this with anyone. You probably want to, or share this with anyone. You probably want to set this as an environment variable. And it now sets it inside of config/master.key. Then it tells us, you know, couldn't decrypt config credentials.yaml.enc. So what we want to do now is let's just try to remove that config/credentials. And then let's try to do this. This now opens up a new credentials file. And now what we have to do, if I exit out of this on my other screen and make sure I'm doing this correctly, credentials edit. I have my other server open on my other window. Looks like we're good in there. So let's go ahead and let's hit Control L. And now what we want to do is, I guess, probably try to restart the server. So let me grab my commands here. So if you want to restart the Rails server, you can do systemctl restart rails.service. And that will restart the actual Rails server. Now this is requesting us to log in as a root. I don't have a root password, so I'm going to hit Control L to exit out of that. And then I'm going to hit Control D again. And I'm going to just SSH in as the root. And that will allow me to just use the key real quick. And then I'll cd into /home Rails and to-do. And the reason I'm doing this is I'm just going to be hopping around between accounts for a little bit here. So what I want to do now is run a systemctl restart rails.service. And then I'm going to close out of our previous applications here. I'm just going to restart, refresh a couple times. It looks like Nginx isn't happy. We have a 502 error. So what could the 502 error be? Well, off the top of my head, the most obvious answer is the server might not be running in production. So let's try a Rails db : migrate command to create a development database. And it looks like root does not exist. So let me just nano config/database. Just check in here. Our default, our development looks like it's using example development as database. It's not looking for a user, so maybe we need to do a Rails env equals development Rails db : migrate command. So it doesn't like that, so let's just go ahead and sudo -i-u Rails cd into /home Rails and the to-do API. And then let's do a Rails db : migrate command to see if we can migrate the development database. Looks like we can, and that causes the application to work again. Now if I come over to /API/todos/ /API/v1/todos, it's telling me no route matches this path. And the reason for this is we're actually in our other application right now. So we need to pop over to there. So the way we can edit this is by doing sudo. Well, I guess we don't need sudo. Oh, I don't know. I don't know if we need it or not. Let's just use it. Who cares about some destructiveness on a temporary server? This is about learning. So if we go to etc Nginx sites enabled, I believe, and then /Rails. If we edit this without our sudo privileges, because again, I don't have a password. I keep forgetting that. It looks like, yeah, this needs to be changed around a bit. So let's go ahead and let's drop out of this back into our root. And then let's do a nano etc nginx sites enabled Rails. And then in here, what we need to do, and I have a file for this as well, is, let me scroll down. Okay. We need to change this root. This needs to not point to example anymore. It needs to point to todo-api/public. This underscore is still fine. This stuff is still fine. This slash is still fine. And the rest of this looks fine to me as well. The other thing we will need, though, is we'll need a 8080 block. So for this, we'll say server. And we'll open up this stuff in the brackets. It needs to listen on port 8080. It has a root at /home/rails/to-do-api/front-end/public. It has a server name of underscore, same as the other one. And it also has actually all of this stuff, really. So let's just grab here up to here. Copy, oops, actually want to go here up to here. Copy all of this, and we'll just paste it down here. Excellent. And we need to change this IP. So instead of localhost port 3000, we want our proxy pass to be to port 8081, I believe. So that looks good. The rest of this looks good. Let's go ahead and let's save this, exit out. And now we can do a service Nginx restart, I believe. That will cause Nginx to restart. And that should, in theory, now if we come into our, what is it? I don't think I have the command in here, but if we do systemctl, and then we need to do, what is it? Systemctl. I don't remember what this command is. I've run this like 40 times trying to set this up. Systemctl restart rails.service. And then let's go ahead and let's try to navigate to this again. And we're getting another 502 error here. And if we open up our F12, we can see that our error is probably not helpful. It's just complaining about a resource. So let's go ahead and let's try to just go to the root of the application. That seems fine. Going to /API causes an issue. Going to /v1/todos causes an issue. So my running theory is that we need to edit the, let me come over to here and, okay, so I've come over to the Ruby on Rails marketplace entry. And if we come in here and scroll down, it tells us what files we need to edit. We need to edit the unit file. So this is in /etc/systemd/system/rails. And here it says Rails/service, but what I actually found is I think it's just /Rails. What is it? Rails. This one's not even working. systemd/system/rails. This should work. /service. Nope. Okay. Why did this not work? Oh, there we go. It is, in fact, /etc/systemd/system/rails.service. What a mouthful. Okay. And now what we need to do in here is we need to change, I think, two things. So if I'm not mistaken, we need to change this working directory here to be to-do-api. And I think we need to change this to be Rails env equals production bundle exec puma. And I think that's basically it. So let's save this, exit, and then we'll run our reset command again. And it looks like it's upset. So now we need to do a systemctl daemon-reload command, which will reload this file. And now we can do a reset service. And I'm actually going to also do a service Nginx restart. And now that we have both of those, I'm going to grab both of these, copy these and say nano bash nano reset.sh. Paste this in. Do that. And now I should be able to do /reset. Oops. What is it? I just called it /reset.sh. Oh, okay. So what we want to do is chmod 777 reset.sh and then /reset.sh. And that should allow us to reset basically on demand. And when that happens, you'll notice that the entire application goes down for a second because we're basically turning off the we're turning off both the Nginx and we're turning off the Rails server itself. Okay, so it looks like our error, and I found this out by going into our production log, which is in log/production.log, and I hit Alt and the question mark button. Our error is that the database doesn't exist. So what we have to do then is sudo -i-u rails, and then let's cd into /home/rails/to-do API. Let's do a Rails env equals production and a Rails db :create command to try to create the database. That created the database, and now let's do a migration command again to migrate the database. And now let's drop out of this and let's run our resets to reset both the Nginx and the regular Rails stuff. And now you can see we finally have our API being served here. So now let's go ahead and let's cd into our front end and let's run a npm. We actually have two options. I'm going to run an npm install real quick. But what you can do is you can build your npm project for production, which is using your npm run build, and then you would use like a what is it? npm serve view, and I think it's called, I don't remember what the command is, but it's you install right here. You install serve, and then you can use serve to serve your dist folder. You do want to set up your view as a service in the same way the Rails is set up. Basically meaning that if your server goes down and your server comes back up, you set the service to run on start, and then it would automatically start up your front end. I'm not going to be covering that, but that is something you want to look into. Just it's usually not something that beginners test because they don't really reboot their servers all that often. But when the server does eventually go down for maintenance or something, you will definitely notice, and you'll probably be scratching your head why the front end just randomly died on you, and that's going to be why. But once this is done, we'll need to go in and we'll need to edit our core stuff, because previously our core stuff, if I come into the GitHub repo while this is running, we had the config, initializers, and the cores.rb, and this was expecting stuff from localhost port 8080. But of course, we're not running off of localhost port 8080 anymore. We have this external IP address. You could probably set these up to run off of local hosts and just do local requests, but we're just going to whitelist them like this because it's basically the same concept anyways. So now that this is done and I've filled enough time by rambling, we can come over here and we can do a, we need to nano our, what is it? We need to, well, let's go ahead and let's do a npm run serve first, just to do a bit of a sanity check and see if this actually works. So once this is done, instead of going to instead of going to the default one, we'll need to come to the same IP address, but instead we're going to go to :8081, and I'll show you why in a second here. Basically, Nginx is listening on port 8080, and when you go to port 8080, we actually need to go to port 8080. I'm wrong here, but when you go to port 8080, Nginx will pick that up and it will redirect to this local network. Because of that, we go to 8080, even though it says that we're serving from 8081. So Nginx is smart enough to see this request, and it takes this request, assuming I set stuff up correctly, and it points it to this address. Now, right now, it looks like it's having a bit of a moment. So I'm going to open up another terminal here, and I'm going to SSH into our server again. So I'm going to say SSH root at this IP, and I'll just get rid of this stuff. Then it should let me in, and then we can take a look at what's wrong. So let's cd into /homes, what is it, Rails, and then to do API. Clear that, and now let's do a nano for the /etc Nginx sites enabled Rails. And let's just take a look in here and make sure all of this is right. It's listening on port 8080. It's doing a proxy pass to port 8081. That seems correct to me. Let's see. Nano /etc Nginx sites enabled, and then Rails. What does my other server look like? Let's see. It is doing a proxy pass, but what I have here is not what I have on the other server. It looks like my location for the other server is just that first proxy pass. So let's get rid of that stuff. And we have 8080 front end public. That's fine. The rest of that's fine. So let's Control O, enter, Control X, service. Let me bump up the size here. Service, Nginx, restart. And then we'll see what this ends up doing for us. Looks like that reset Nginx. This is still timing out. So now let's come into our, let's come into our front end. Do an ls. Let's do an ls-la just to see what our permissions are here. And I'm willing to bet if we go into the to-do app on the other one, I do a ls-la, these permissions seem to be different. So it looks like what we need to do, cd front end, we need to chmod 775, I think, -r the public folder, I guess, because we need the permissions here to, is it the public folder? It might also be the, let's see. So let's do this. Let's do 77-r public. See if that's enough. If that's not enough, we will cd up one level, and we'll do the same command, but instead we'll do it for the front end. And we'll just see if doing this, which is totally not a good idea, but we'll see if this is a permissions issue potentially. It doesn't look like it is. I wonder if this is an issue with it being owned by, okay, so let's try this. Let's do a sudo-i-u rails cd/home rails to do front end API. And then let's do a npm run serve as the, oh, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, I bet this is an issue with the port. It's probably not an issue with the permissions or anything else. This is almost definitely an issue with the port. So what we need to do for this, and I even had the window open because I was planning on covering it for you guys. So I guess here you can see that I still run into the stuff that I'm talking about. We need to enable the UFW port for 8080. So for this, we can just do, we'll just drop out into sudo, and we'll just say UFW allow 8080. And then we can actually just run an npm run serve probably as root. Again, not the best practices around here, but the whole point is we're trying to learn how things work. And unfortunately, sometimes that makes for some messy development processes, but now we have the API working. So, or we have the front end working, and here we're going to get some connection refused requests. So why are we getting those? Well, we're close to the end now, thankfully, but the last thing we need to do is we need to set up our CORS policies. So for this, we need to go into both, let me just grab my Visual Studio here. We need to go into, let me close this, nano, and we're going to go into config/initializer/CORS. we have this allow port 8080 here. Let's change this to allow this IP address. So it's going to be HTTP, the IP address, :8080. Get rid of that last slash. The rest of this is fine. So we'll save this. And then the other thing we need to do is we need to go into our front end. So we'll do a nano front end /src/store/modules/todos. And in here we have our API URL. And now, of course, our API URL is wrong because it's actually this. So let's just delete all of this, paste in our API URL, save that. And now let's do our reset.sh. And now we should, in theory, see something happen. Come over to our API, refresh that, refresh our to-do list to did it. And there we go. So we are getting a socket error here, but it looks like we have overall a SDF successfully set up our front end application here. So if we just do some of these changes, it looks like they are all working sort of as expected, and it's filtering in an interesting way. It looks like it's filtering by last updated at maybe, but setting all of that aside, we now have a front end application powered by a back end that's being updated over here, and it's all working sort of as expected. And you are now able to create a production level Vue front end and Rails back end API setup thing in fairly little time. I think, setting aside all of the mistakes that I made during this video, the overall experience was probably not too bad once I edited everything down. I think for me, it's probably like a 15 to a 20-minute process to set all of this up, but hopefully this helped. I'm going to go ahead and cut to the outro video now. All right, so that's going to do it for me today. If this video helped you, please remember to like it. If it didn't help you, remember to dislike it so we don't subject other people to more bad tutorials. Remember to subscribe and all that other stuff. And hopefully when this video goes up, there will be some membership options down below. So if you really like the content, you really want me to make more of it, membership options for the channel should be available. I don't know. I think I'm finally launching them with this video, but we'll see. I never really know what future me is going to do. But, you know, that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.